than... Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the co-founder and CEO of DLA Ignite. With me today, I'm really excited because we've got Maggie Chan Jones. And I'm really excited because we're going to talk about her book, her first book that's just come out. And I'm really excited because I've actually been onto Amazon and it's for sale today. Isn't that amazing? Anyway, Maggie, where can people find you?
Well, people can find me on LinkedIn or on Twitter at MaggieCJ, or just email me, Maggie@Tenshey.com.
So Maggie, you've got a book out today.
Today, yeah.
And it's called Decoding Sponsorship. Correct me if I'm wrong. I just wrote this down to make sure. The secret strategy to accelerate your career and launch into leadership. Now, I said to you, I wish I'd had this book 25 years ago. Rather than having to muddle your way through a career. You're a really successful person. You know, you've been CMO of SAP. You're now a CEO in your own right. Just give us a brief view on your career today and how you've got to where you are.
Yeah, that's exactly what my book is about, and I just got my own copy just yesterday.
I'm sorry. I'm so excited for you. We were saying just before we come, I've written 2 books, and it takes so much effort. So much effort, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. But the here we are. We are able to hold it up and go, here's something that you've created. And
I know, right? Like you can hold it, you can feel it. It is pretty amazing. Yeah. So to answer your question, that's exactly why I wrote this book, because I always get questions about, Maggie, how do you get to the C-suite? What were the lessons learned? And I share a lot of stories in my book. And I would say there are 2 things that are very critical for anyone who is listening or watching and thinking about your career growth. One is really getting clarity of where you want to go in your career, and which is what I call it the career North Star. I would say midway through my corporate career, that's when I really figured out that becoming a CMO, it was what I wanted to do. And then from that point forward, every decision that I made for a career move was very much aligning to, becoming a CMO. And then the second thing, which I wrote a lot in this book, is about getting sponsorship. Yes. I really believe that, none of us could get to where we get to by ourselves. So, one of the key differentiators for me was having people who pull me forward. And, which is why one of the things that I always talked about is paying it forward. I felt like I had achieved, more than what I had imagined for myself in my career. And now I want to give back and, focus on how do I help the next generation leaders to grow, especially women and underrepresented minorities.
So I mean, you talk about the fact that it's so critical to have some sort of mentorship. And I agree with you. I mean, give us an idea about what you see. What to you is mentorship, and what should a mentor look like?
Yeah, I would have to say there are clear differentiations between mentorship and sponsorship.
Okay.
And, and the way I think about mentors, which are so important, and many of us already have a lot of mentors, throughout our career, they are the people who have competencies that we want to learn from. They are the people who have been there and done that on the trails that you are about to embark on. And so they have a lot of experience to help you to understand, what are some of the paths to get there. But the difference is, though, for sponsors, which comes to sponsorship, are the people who are usually at a higher level than you in your organization. They have the political capital to help pull you forward. And that is why, so for many women that I speak with, that I mentor, I really encourage them to get sponsors within their organization. Yes. So that when you are not in the room, they can speak on your behalf and help you open doors and new opportunities, advocate for you, and help you, to connect with the right people to help you to grow your career.
And I think, I've worked in corporate environments, and it's so critical that you have as you say, mentors, people that can give you advice, and the sponsorship, which are the people that, there are meetings that are going on where you're not in there, and they're going,
Exactly.
who should do this role?
Exactly.
And what we want are those people that say, well, I think Maggie will be a perfect fit with that role.
Exactly. And that's why in this book, I'm literally decoding what sponsorship means, because so many people are focusing on getting mentors, but, is absolutely important. But at the same time, you're missing the element of, who are the people going to talk about promotions? Who are the people going to talk about who's taking on a stretch project and important initiatives? And you want to make sure that you are, your name is is being mentioned in those conversations.
So also in the book, it's not just about you, is it? Because you've actually reached out to people and you've sought their counsel. So talk about the other people that you've actually spoken to and got their advice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was so delighted that many of the people in my own journey were able to say, yes, Maggie, I would love for you to share my stories. One of the stories that I feel really, really proud about is Gail Moody-Bird. She was in the marketing group when I was at SAP. And she was one of the very first people that I sponsored, as someone who was rising in the organization. And, when I spoke with her, she really told her story about what she was feeling, that, as a Black American woman, that she felt like, her growth in her career were not really in parallel to where she thought she was going. So in this book, we explore her own stories from her own words about, how sponsorship helped her, and how now she became a CMO in her own right in a fast-growing startup and becoming a first-time board of director of a public company. I mean, it's such a tremendous story. So I definitely highlight her story. And then, another one I want to highlight is Asha George. She is the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at Electronic Arts. And I got a chance to meet her when she was working at Dell Technologies. And hearing her story of being a mom with two young kids and also having a husband, a spouse that, have a very demanding career just like she has, how do you, being a mom and an executive, how do you balance it all with the support of your support system from your family and friends to your neighbors as well? I think those are tremendous stories.
And I think all of us have challenges. Obviously, some people have more challenges than other, but it's whoever you are, from whatever your background, you need to have the sponsorship. But you do a lot of work around diversity and inclusion. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So, after I left SAP in 2017, I decided to start my own startup, my own company, Tenshey, which stands for angel in Japanese and Chinese. And my company is all about helping organizations to unlock their potential with diverse talents. And so we focus on executive coaching as well as our award-winning sponsorship programs, focusing on women and underrepresented minorities, and organizations that we got to work with. With the cohorts that they have in the sponsorship program, they were seeing, 3 times, 5 times of the promotion rate, and, and also stretch projects that were given to the talents that were in the program. And the great thing about these type of sponsorship programs sponsored by, different organizations is that not only the organizations are showcasing their commitment to diversity and inclusion, that, their leaders, kind of like myself, that says, I got to where I got to because someone else pulled me along. So now I want to give back and I want to pull the next generation leaders forward. And so it's truly a win-win-win for the, for the talents who are getting the opportunity to getting the visibility, for the leaders who can really help the organization from a leadership pipeline perspective, and for obviously the organization, because we know that diversity is truly a business imperative. And we're talking about, in this time right now where, it's coined as the great resignation, right? Talent retention is so critical right now.
Yeah.
So finding ways to showcase how you're going to help employees to feel like they belong is very important.
And I think most people are understanding that diversity and inclusion isn't just about having a plaque on the wall. It's about putting your money where your mouth is. And I agree with you in not just bringing forward that talent, but also making sure that you're investing in it as well.
Absolutely. And I also think that, in the UK, I know I'm speaking with you in London, personally, I'm on a FTSE 100 board, and knowing that the UK governance actually has done, I would say, done a better job than, compared to the US, where they're already, targets on, the percentage of women and percentage of underrepresented in the boardroom, and also in senior leadership as well. Mapping that together with the culture of the company is very critical. So it's great to see the UK is taking charge in that.
Well, thank you, because I think that always with this we could always do more. And so we get to a point, and then it's a bit like some targets, isn't it? You actually have a stretch, which is you want to achieve something, but there's actually a goal, and there has to be. We have to bring on more diversity and inclusion. I know in my business, the more diversity we have, the better decisions we have,
Absolutely.
the better input we have, the better innovation. I can just see it in front of my eyes. So
yes. And actually, that was why, in every leadership team that I've had, I always focus on how did I build my team, my leadership team, that really mimic what our representation of our customer base look like, right? As a former CMO, that was one of the key things for me is, how do I ensure that we are representing what our customers look like and what customers are thinking, and how do we, to your point, really foster innovations.
So let's go back to the book. You I know, because we've talked about this before. I know that you've put you put a lot of yourself. I'm talking as much as myself as much as you. A lot of yourself into the book, and you've done that. And I know that you started off. You had a co-author, and then there was a misalignment, I think, in terms of the idea of the deadline. And then you started taking it on yourself. So to talk us through that process and how the investment of your time and the investment in you that you've put into it.
Yeah. I would say it wasn't so much of the misalignment of the idea with my co-author. It was more of a timing issue, to your point, that, my co-author was a friend of mine from Microsoft, actually. And she is so wonderful. She was the one who actually put a plug in my ear, as you will, 5 years ago, and saying, Maggie, you have such a tremendous story. You should tell it one day through a book. And at that moment, I didn't really think about it so much because I was in my corporate career. I was very focused on the job at hand. But then, a couple of years later, I was like, wow, I should really revisit this, this idea of writing a book. And that was when I reached back out to her and say, hey, would you be, open to writing this book with me? But at the same time, after we started writing and she took on a new role that really, took on all her time. So I was like, okay, so I actually put this, project, as you will, on the shelf. No pun intended. And I didn't revisit this idea of writing a book until almost a year ago. And, I mean, you have written, a couple of books already, Tim. The process is you have to spend so much time, like focus time.
Yeah.
Right. And I was building my company. I was serving on board. So the only time that I had, which, was really about focus time, was sitting at my kitchen table on every Sundays, for months, so that I could actually get this book to fruition.
Yeah, I did that. I used to have writing days, and it was usually probably Sundays as well, where my partner would just go out and just leave me, and I just needed the time and the space and the silence to just sit there and focus. And that's what you need.
The other thing that I learned, and I actually heard it from someone else and I took it too hard, was as an author, you always feel like you have to keep writing, because you could always, I was like, oh, what about this story? What about that? And I just wanted to keep going. But at some point, you have to tell yourself, like, pencils down, right? Or in this case, is really more like, okay, stop the keyboard. But at the same time, it's really about, okay, I think we're getting to where I wanted to be, and really have to take a step back and let the rest of the process proceed.
So who is this book aimed at?
I really think that this book is great for anyone who are looking to accelerate their career growth, or thinking about, how do they really cultivate their own career, thinking about where they want to go. So whether you are, in college, getting ready to go into, the workforce, or, you are a seasoned professional and executive, a leader wanting to, get some ideas on how do you give back and pay it forward, it's really for that. At the same time, like I mentioned previously too, that I really wrote this book with women and underrepresented minorities in mind, because, personally, when I was growing my career in corporate America, and even today, only 20% of the C-suite are women, and only 4 or 5% are women of color, at least in corporate America. So I really hope that within my lifetime, I can see equality happening.
And I agree. I think that there's a great, for a young person who's looking to build a career, it obviously is a great way of understanding what to do. But I agree with you also that the older people who are in a position where they need to be paying it forward, and looking for the leadership to come through, and sponsoring those people, and understanding that there's because some people, I've spoken to CEOs, and CEOs have said, well, if the people will do it, they want to do it.
Yep.
And it's like, no. You're the leader.
Yep.
You're the leader, and part of leadership is actually to sponsor the next generation of leaders to come through. That's
yes,
part of
absolutely.
what leadership does. But people need to be told it, I guess.
I think there are definitely different camps of people, right? There are leaders that, absolutely, they already know this, diversity being a business imperative, and they're taking charge and walking the talk. And unfortunately, there are just too many organizations, and that are still, not getting to the point where they can really stand up and lead the organization from a diversity perspective. And unfortunately, to your point, that's where the public sector and the regulations, the policies that would have to come in play.
And where do you see diversity and inclusion going in the near future?
One of the things that I am very enthusiastic about is that, with more and more organizations now talking about stakeholder capitalism, and talking about the importance of putting employees first. I talk about the great resignation period that we're in right now, because people, with this unfortunate event of the pandemic, people are really reevaluating what is important to them, how should they really think about, integrating their life and career. So I really believe that the organizations that really understand, the importance of bringing belonging to everyone in the workforce, those are the organizations, those are the companies that going to have that competitive advantage to to have all these talents that would want to join their organizations. Whereas, to your point about leaders that are just not getting the memo, as you will, Unfortunately, when talents look at their organization, they're going to look at the purpose, they're going to look at the diversity of the organization, and and they're going to lose that edge.
Yeah, I can't see how. I mean, we're now in a situation, regardless of where we are with the pandemic, that people are making a choice of that they want to work where they want to work, and they don't want to work where they don't want to work.
Yes.
And therefore there's a battle of talent, and one of the things that us leaders have to do is make sure that we're creating an environment that people want to work for us.
Exactly. So this is really the time that, just like when the pandemic started, and, you see a huge increase of organizations really focusing on their own digital transformation. But, the early adapter of digital transformations are the ones that are really reaping the benefits of, of how they can service the consumers, the customers of today, where everything, has to be digital and the experience have to be superb.
Maggie, thank you so much for coming on today and talking about your book. I'm so pleased for you and excited for you that it's out. So just reminding people, it's called Decoding Sponsorship: The Secret Strategy to Accelerate Your Career and Launch into Leadership. And it's available on Amazon worldwide.
Thank you so much.
Maggie, where can people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, and you can also find me on Twitter at MaggieCJ, or just email me, Maggie@Tenshey.com.
Okay, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your insight, and as I say, wish you best of luck with the book. It looks fantastic.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much, Tim.
Thanks, Maggie. Bye.
Bye.